And exercise 15, creating a coherent narrative. Trauma researcher Stephen Joseph says in Michaela Haas's book, Bouncing Forward, Transforming Bad Breaks into Breakthroughs, people are always telling themselves stories. It is how we make sense of the significance of what has happened to us. In the wake of trauma, people are often telling themselves stories of mental defeat and hopelessness. And they need to be in a position to begin reframing their story as one that looks to the future and begin to view things in a beneficial way. Sometimes you do have to integrate a deeply traumatizing event into the story of your life. The death of a child or the loss of your home in a fire. Researchers have found that journaling can be a powerful tool in coming to terms with a traumatizing event because the brain processes an event differently when you're writing about it than when you're thinking or talking about it. Writing puts you more in an observer role, holding the event in the larger awareness, and you can begin to see that what happened is a part of your story, but not the whole story. There was a time before, something happened, and there is an after, even if your life after the event is very different from what it was before. What happened is still included in your larger life story, not forgotten or denied or glossed over as though it never happened, but it does not determine the entire story. Whatever happened has its place in your life, but it doesn't have to determine the rest of your life. So again, when doing this on your own, allow at least 30 minutes to do this written reflection, even if you're working with a small, manageable event. Taking the time to reflect creates space in your brain's processing to generate insights you might not have expected. Identify a single event that you want to practice with. Choose an event that you did manage to cope with, that you processed successfully and learned from. You want to stay within your range of resilience in this exercise and not risk being re-triggered or re-traumatized. With practice, however, this tool can help you process anything that has ever happened. Write your reflections for each of these prompts and take as much time as you need. Describe what happened and describe the consequences. Use your tools of mindfulness and self-compassion to come to the awareness and acceptance of a compassionate observer's perspective. You try to relate to the event somewhat objectively. And describe the resources, the practices, the tools, and coping strategies that you used at the time. And recall these clearly, with honesty and pride, no shame or blame. It's important to recover the strengths and resources you already had at the time. And describe the resources and responses you would use now if you could do this over. You have probably grown and learned since the event occurred, and this step integrates that learning. Describe the lessons you learned and the growth you experienced and the positive meanings you found. Take all the time you need. This step is the turning point of the exercise. List the things you now appreciate because of the event. Resilience involves more than coping. It's finding the new lessons, the new possibilities, the new opportunities, the new sense of meaning and purpose and life direction because of the event, not just in spite of it. I know it's tricky to describe an exercise like this in an online format, not in an in-person live workshop. But I did teach this exercise once in a webinar for End Science in London, and a participant emailed me to say that he had used this exercise to process memories of the death of his wife, and even though that had happened 15 years before, and he had already processed it quite thoroughly, he learned some new things from doing this exercise and was glad to have those new insights. When you've finished this written reflection, set it aside for 2 or 3 days. And when you reread it, notice whether you've had any additional insights to what you've already written. And reread this reflection again a month, or a year later, and notice how your relationship to the event has continued to shift. This exercise helps you let go of any stories about yourself that are not helpful to you now, and to reflect on and claim any resilience you've already developed. It can also help you trust that you will be resilient in the face of whatever might happen in the future.